The stimulus bike has been back up and running. I've probably put about 200 miles on it. The story with this is I built it when I got the stimulus check, put about maybe 10 miles on it, and the back wheel bent. At the time, I didn't know that the hub mounts have an issue with slipping when you don't key them and key the hub itself, which I wasn't going to be doing anyways. So, got this back running after 4 years. This thing sat for 4 years because after the wheel broke, I was like, okay, that's unfortunate. I don't have another wheel. And then some things happened. I moved across the country, and then some things happened, and then I moved back. And I was like, oh, hey, there's my bike. Then I kept doing my life thing. And then eventually, after moving to two places, I moved my bike to two places, and I was like, I should do something with this. And also, that bike that's behind my bike, essentially identical bike. It's a Magna Mountain Tamer with a YD100. That one I was given for free. Came with that wheel. I put that wheel on this bike, and then I broke that wheel. But while that was running, I built this wheel, put it on that bike. This bike is no longer running. I think it needs a new magneto. I'm gonna figure that out. Whichever one of these I get the most reliable is gonna be the test platform for top speed. I wanna tear these motors apart, get them running as good as I can. This bike was a mistake. I bought this on Marketplace. Was going to be for $100, but I ended up paying $60 because I thought I was going to be able to get it to run, but I was not able to get it to run because the derailleur that used to be on the bike, the rear derailleur, was so out of alignment that it was getting caught in the spokes. So I just took a Sawzall and cut it off. And I did that so I could get the bike rolling at least, so I didn't have to take the whole thing apart and build a whole nother bike just to find out if the engine was any good, because otherwise I could have torn the whole engine apart, but then I would have an engine in a million pieces instead of a bike that could be working. Also, it looks like this sprocket is a fair bit bigger than the factory sprocket. I think that's more towards 50 tooth territory. So this thing would be a wheelie machine when I do get it running. Oh wait, I said that needed a magneto? This needs a magneto. That might need the motor torn apart, which is a problem because it's a YD100. If you know anything about these motors, if you don't, pretty much everything for that motor is not replaceable with any other type of part. So that one is just shoved back in the corner for now. I hope I don't have to tear apart the motor, but I may have to tear apart the motor. This one, gonna put a magneto on, try and get it to run. May just leave it like this, depending on how bad not having pedals is, because it seems like this frame is together at the very least. But this bike is the one that I built, and this, of course, has been holding up great, except I forgot that I only ran it for 10 hours when I first built it. Got a little excited when I got it running again after letting it sit for 4 years. Did not think about the fact that this engine has just been sitting for 4 years. In the past couple of days, I've had an issue of the base gasket leaking. So I torqued the head bolts a little bit. Hopefully it stops leaking. I seem to have a slight air leak on flat ground. Without wind pushing my back, it'll go like 30, about the speeds that it would be going while being broken in. And it should be able to push a little more, especially with that sprocket on there. Now these two bikes I just got this morning on a trade. I'm trading this bike for these two bikes. I was given my grandparents' bikes and I sold off one, but one of them I was just sitting on Marketplace for a very long time. I went to go look at this bike, and the guy that had this bike had his garage full of like 80, at least 80 bikes 50 of them hanging on his ceiling. Got to talking to him about bikes. Ended up striking a deal for this Schwinn Admiral, modern but classic looking cruiser that I want to put a motor on. And the bike behind it I think is really neat. A Bridgestone CB1 City Limit, more of a cruiser with the tires that it has on it, but it's basically a mountain bike that doesn't have any shocks or anything. I did not know that Bridgestone ever made bikes. I've always known them for tires. Also comes with a really neat Springer seat. At first I was unsure if putting a motor on this bike would be acceptable, but I've looked into it and apparently the CB1 is less of a collectible than other models of Bridgestone bikes. They are collectible, but this one wouldn't be worth much. So I'm going to make sure that I keep it nice when I put an engine on it. Looks like a pretty solid bike. I am currently trying to look into what carburetors to try out. I've seen a couple of videos about chainsaw carburetors, but they look a little complicated to get set up. I want to do that down the road, but in the meantime, I think I want to just throw on a slightly more powerful carburetor that will just bolt on with no issues. I'm currently working on a Miata update and also trying to work on clearing out my garage because it's how many people do you know with not one, not two, but 3 Miata bumpers in the rafters of their garage? That was an absolutely terrible place to put them, but I put them there and I'm out of space now, so not really much that I can do about that. Also, I feel like my last video, it was fairly low effort, but trying to make these after work is a little bit harder than I expected. I liked video editing a lot, making videos when I was in like middle school, high school, so just like the bikes, want to get back into it. Not just 3 bumpers, but also 2 exhausts. And then I got another one right there.